All right, calling the meeting to order. It is now 6:31 p.m. This is the Sherborn Select Board meeting of July 24th, 2025. All Select Board members are present. We've got Paul Durensis, Dan Sickle, Marion Neutra, Jeff Waldron is remote, and I am Stephen Tsai. Can we begin by having the Assistant Town Administrator read the executive session agenda, please?
Good evening. So item number 1 is pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of the Public Records Law. General Law, Chapter 4, Section 7, parentheses 26, to discuss privileged written communication from counsel, and General Law, Chapter 38, Section 2, parentheses A and 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. Hudson Walker versus Sherborn Planning Board, Land Court 23, MISC 0000398. Item number 2 is pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, parentheses A and 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease of real value of real property where the chair declares that an open session may have a detrimental effect on the board's negotiating position, and is 21A, 21 parentheses A and 7, to comply with or act under the authority of the Public Records Law, General Law, Chapter 4, Section 7, parentheses 26, 2 Whitney Drive, and privileged written legal advice regarding same. Item 3, meeting with town council pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, parentheses A and 3, potential litigation, and Section 21, parentheses A and 7, to comply with or act under the authority of the Public Records Law, General Law, Chapter 4, Section 7, parentheses 26, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM, 449 Mass, parentheses 2007, to discuss privileged communication with Town Council, Sherborn Public Library. Item number 4 is discussion regarding collective bargaining strategy for negotiations with the Sherborn Police Association, Mass Coalition of Police, Local 158, parentheses the Police Bargaining Unit, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, parentheses A, 3, and 7, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM, 449 Mass, 444, parentheses 2007. Item number 5, strategy session to prepare for contract negotiations with non-bargaining union employee pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, parentheses A and 2, for the police lieutenant. Item number 6 is a strategy session to prepare for contract negotiations with non-bargaining union employee pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, parentheses A and 2, for the DPW director. And item number 7 is a strategy session to prepare for contract negotiations with non-bargaining union employee pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, parentheses A and 2, for the town administrator.
Thank you. And just to be clear, this is a rather long executive session agenda, and our public session is listed for 8 p.m. So it is possible that one or more of these executive session items might have to get done after the open session. With that in mind, can I get a motion, or does anybody have any amendments to the agenda? All right, hearing none, can I get a motion relative to the agenda?
A second.
All right, moved and seconded. Marion?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. And now, as the chair, I do declare that executive session is necessary for the purposes put forth by the Assistant Town Administrator, and I move that we enter into executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Marion?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Thank you. Jeremy, can you stop the recording?
Pine Hill CSA person is?
Oh, yeah, so the person on Zoom who is listed as Pine Hill CSA, can you identify yourself? Or if not, we might.
I'm sorry. I thought
Oh, it's Liz.
it's Liz Anderson. I got saved. I was like, where am I? Sorry. I will rename myself.
Okay, good to know, Liz. We'll pull you back in on the library item.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds great.
we're gonna put
Thank
you in the
you.
waiting room for now.
Okay, perfect.
thank you, everybody, for your patience. We are back into open session. It is 8:19 PM. So can I have the Assistant Town Administrator read the open session agenda?
Good evening. After I read the agenda, the board can vote to either approve the agenda or amend the agenda. I've had no request for public comments for tonight. Items may be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. Item number 1 is the Woodhaven Affirmative Fair Housing Market Plan. Kitty Sturgis and Liz Russ will be here tonight to discuss that. It was a consideration of a Woodhaven affordable housing restriction and declaration of covenant. Heather White from Petrini Law will be here for that one. Consideration of an interim appointment of the Cemetery Commissioner jointly with remaining members of the Cemetery Commission. Item number 4 is consideration of a Historical Commission appointment for Kevin Shays for an appointment to expire on June 15, 2028. He is a new appointment. Consideration of reappointment to the Farm Pond Advisory Committee for Jackie Martin for a term to expire June 15, 2028. The DOER Climate Leader Program presentation, Amelia Landau is here tonight, our Sustainability Manager. Item number 7 is consideration of election worker appointments, Jackie Morris, Town Clerk. Item number 8 is the consideration of ratifying the employment agreement between the Town of Sherborn and Sean Colleen, DPW Director, Facilities Manager. The consent agenda items are the Town Administrator payroll warrant, a one-day liquor license for August 2nd, 2025 for a bridal shower, and the draft Select Board minutes of June 26, 2025. Then there'll be Select Board reports and a Town Administrator updates.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda? All right, hearing none, can I get a motion relative to the agenda?
So moved to approve.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Marion,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and I'm I as well. All right, thank you. So item number 1, Woodhaven Affirmative Fair Housing Marketing Plan. I see Kitty Sturgis and Liz Rust, you are both with us remotely. Did either of you want to sort of present this one to us?
Kitty's muted.
Oh, Kitty, you're muted. Oh, she's muted.
Is that better?
Yes, we
Oh.
can hear you. Thank you.
A different button this time. I apologize. Elder Housing is posted, but I only see 2 members of our committee, of the committee here now. So how do I proceed on that?
Well, if you don't have a quorum, then you don't have to do anything. You can just start talking.
Okay, very good. Well, I first of all, Liz Rust is here, and I'm going to let her do most of the talking because she's much better at than I am. But I also, Alicia Goody is with us, and Claire McLennan, who is the manager of Woodhaven. Thank you, Steve. Liz?
Oh,
you're-
perfect. Hi. Yep, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Rust. So I'm an affordable housing consultant, and I've been working with the town and the Woodhaven group for some number of years on this project. I think that we were even presenting to the board probably 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. I started working 3 years ago. So this is some time in the making. This is the Affirmative Fair Housing Marketing Plan and materials. It includes the application and the flyer, if you will. They have been reviewed by EOHLC, the successor agency to DHCD, the state. So we went through some rounds of comments with them to make sure that this complied to all of the requirements, and it does. So this is the final document. It's been updated with current rents, so it's up to date. And I wasn't planning on going through section by section, but there's the marketing plan that talks about again the rents and the certification process, how the property is regulated. 6 of the 24 units are designated as affordable. And those are done by income certification at the end of the year. That's done by Claire. And yeah, and those tenants receive $100 off on their rent, as it says in the plan. I don't know if there's any particular aspects of the plan that you want to cover or any points that Kitty or Alicia want to make.
Right.
Yep, go ahead.
So I think it would be useful for you to make clear that we don't really have much choice in this. If we are going to be an affordable housing project and put on the subsidized housing inventory list maintained by the state, we really have to do this. And this is all forms that are supplied by the state, the forms they use. So it's,
It is a
It is.
requirement. Oh, sorry. Mhm.
so it is what it is. I mean, it's not like we can have the ability to say, gee, we want to change paragraph 22 and make it voluntary or anything like that. This is basically take it or leave it.
Well, it is a document that was put together by the committee. It's not a standard form. The requirements by the state is that you have this plan and it contains certain pieces of information, but how you write that and what kind of policies that you use in your plan are really up to the property and the town. But they have to comply to some of the state requirements. But there are pieces that are property specific here.
Paul, if I could just jump in, when Woodhaven was built, as you know, some of the newer members may not know this. It was built in 82 and 83, and it was financed by the sale of bonds. And Woodhaven has never received any federal or state assistance. We don't have a public housing authority, so we're a little bit different in that condition. And what we had done for years was maintain 3 waiting lists, one for Sherborn residents, one for people who had connections with Sherborn residents, such as parents or other relatives, and 3rd for the rest of the world. And this is now not compliant with state requirements. And if you go through the back, you'll see that we will be advertising openings as they come up. In various fora, including towns of Natick, Framingham, etc. Whereas before we were pretty much Sherborn local. And we don't rely on any federal or state assistance. If people who meet the requirements like to get a voucher from Section 8, they can do that on their own and we'll accept it. That just some of the changes. And also we now, as Heather has been working on, need to place a restriction on the property to keep it affordable. We had not done that previously. The town owns the land, but this is again another state requirement. So as Liz said, we were able to have a lot of input in the writing of this document and how we manage the property, but it does have to now comply with certain state requirements.
If I could just add to that, that for years, I and others took the position that we were grandfathered because when we built Woodhaven, it was before these state requirements were really in place. And so we articulated a defense to complaints on the basis that we predated all of this and therefore we were grandfathered with what we were doing. But time has caught up with us and now we have to do these things. Is that a fair statement?
So the requirements have changed over the years. But the state is not in the business of ridding the SHI of units that no longer comply with requirements. But when requested and challenged, they will uphold the current requirements to the projects on the SHI, and that's the situation that's before you now.
All right.
Yeah, I have a question either probably for Liz or Alicia. This was not a 40B project, as I understand. 40B, I think, came after this was built. but there is the opportunity for the town to designate 70% of the units to be local in a 40B project. Is that also the case for
That's true.
other
for-
affordable projects?
That is true for initial leasing only. Once properties are leased up, the local preference is no longer allowed.
Okay.
Dan?
Hey, so this all looks great. Appreciate all the work that went into this. One small thing that caught my eye, and if the answer is this doesn't matter, that's just fine, but I wanted to just flag it. And Heather, this connects to your part as well. So in the marketing plan, in the discussion of rents, it indicates that the rent for the affordable units will be $100 less than the rent for the other units. And in the document that Heather's going to talk to us about in just a few minutes, it indicates that the rents for the affordable units will be 30% of the monthly adjusted income of a family's gross income and so on. So it seemed like there was a discrepancy in the description of rents and what the rents are for affordable units. Don't know if that is important, but I just noted the tension between the two descriptions of rents. And if the answer is none of that matters, it's all good, that's fine, but I did want to flag that.
I can answer that.
Great.
Sure. So that the rents that are the $100 less are for renewals of existing tenants. And the rents that are specified in the restriction and also in this plan are for new tenants coming in. So new tenants will come in at a higher rent, but if you're an existing tenant, you'll.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Thanks. And you don't need us to take any action on this tonight, right? This is just a presentation to us of the new
I think
document.
the committee would like to have your endorsement.
Okay.
If that's okay. I don't know that it's absolutely required, but I think that would be a good sign of support for the committee.
Move that we endorse this.
I think you could do it just by vote.
Okay. We have a motion to endorse and a second. Marion?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm I as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And
Thank
that
you.
rolls us right into Heather for item 2.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
may I just say one comment?
of course.
I wish to thank Diane Moores, who introduced us to Liz Russ, who has been very patient with us.
Yeah.
We have learned a lot. And I also want to thank Alicia and Claire as well. It's been I don't want to say grueling. It's been a fun project. And I never thought 15 years ago I'd be involved with elder housing, but here I am, and I'm well qualified age-wise. But and also thank you to the Board of Selectmen and the rest of the Select Board's office for their support as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kitty. All right, so item 2 is consideration of Woodhaven affordable housing restrictions and declaration of covenant. And for that, I believe we have Heather White from Town Council.
Thank you. Yeah, so as was mentioned, I've been working with the group of folks that just presented that affirmative fair housing marketing plan on one additional piece, which will also be required to bring this older affordable restricted development into compliance with current requirements so that it can be maintained on the subsidized housing inventory. And that is the affordable housing restriction. The town meeting this past spring authorized the town to place an affordable housing restriction on the property, and for that restriction to be held by the Affordable Housing Trust, which was created in Sherborn a few years ago. So that is how this is structured. That does make it a somewhat uncommon arrangement where it is more typical for restrictions to be placed on properties that are constructed and operated by developers, sold to private parties, and then the restriction is held by the town. So it's a little bit unusual for a town to be the owner and operator of an affordable housing development. So we have made some appropriate changes to what would otherwise be a pretty standard type of restriction document to reflect the nature of this being a town-owned and operated property with the restriction to be held by the Affordable Housing Trust. This, unlike the marketing plan, has not been submitted to EOHLC for any review and comment yet. We got to a point just recently where this internal working group had finalized some of the details that we've been working out for some time, and we wanted to bring this to you just for some initial discussion and any comments from you before we do submit it to EOHLC, which will be our next step to get their feedback, because ultimately they will have to approve this. So it's likely that there will be some comments, some changes from the state as we continue to work on this draft. But now that it has at least reached a stage of completion as a comprehensive draft, we wanted to bring it to your attention and see if you have any questions or input.
There's a couple of things.
Thank you, Paul.
So on page 4 of the draft I have, it says error, reference source not found in the bottom of the page. And we may want to fill that in, or is my draft earlier than others?
So the draft that is the most final draft that we've worked on is dated July 16th, and I'm just pulling up my electronic version. I did not see any error messages when I looked through it before I sent it along, but let me see if I have one on it.
Page 4.
Page 4. And you said near the bottom?
Yeah, it says except as set forth above, initial monthly maximum rents include utilities for the property shall be set forth in Exhibit C attached here 2, notwithstanding the rent restrictions set forth in section error, reference source not found.
Interesting. So my version that was attached to the email I distributed did not have that error message. I have a complete paragraph. So there could have been some glitch in the transmission, and I apologize for that. Does everyone have that error on their copy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do not have the technical expertise to explain why the computer did that, but we'll make sure that we get copies that don't have that error message in them to you. But the paragraph does go on to discuss the maximum monthly rents permitted to be charged for the property at particular income levels are not required to be lower than the maximum rent applicable at such income level pursuant to Exhibit C, regardless of changes in fair market rents or in median income over time. Any increase in rents for the property above applicable maximums subject to the town's prior written determination. So it's all pretty standard language, but it is, at least in my version that's on my screen right now, complete with no computer errors.
You look at page 6, there's a paragraph that says inspection. And then it says inspection, the town agrees to comply and to cause the department to comply with all requirements of the regulation and guidelines on all other applicable laws, rules, regulations, and executive orders. So the heading and the text don't agree. You're talking about inspections, but then the provision only deals with compliance with regulations and guidelines.
Thank you. We'll correct that heading.
Then on page paragraph 12, notices. On my version, we have all X's for the Affordable Housing Trust. And isn't that 19 Washington Street? Shouldn't that be filled in as 19 Washington Street?
I will accept that information from you and plug it in accordingly if that's correct.
And sort of my overall view of this is that it's very restrictive. There's literally nothing that we can do with this property. I wonder 50 years from now, if we wanted to do something different with the land and duplicate Woodhaven somewhere else, we'd be really tied up with all these restrictions and covenants and whatnot, and these are all permanent forever. It's a little scary sitting here saying, gee, we should sign this that prevents us from ever doing anything with this property. Just so many restrictions.
And I think Liz has her hand up too, and I'll just say that, yes, this would be a permanent restriction. We did have an internal discussion about whether we would initially present this as a restriction that would be subject to a 30-year statute of limitations, or if it would be a restriction in perpetuity. The working group at least felt that it would be more beneficial just to move forward with the permanent restriction so that it wouldn't have to be renewed on a periodic basis. But my understanding is that this type of perpetual restriction is what is typically imposed on a project that is included on the SHI, and that is the expectation that when a project is restricted in this manner, it will be continuously. But I know Liz also has something to chime in on that.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, so I think you do have the option of being SHI eligible with a 30-year restriction. And the discussion that we had in the working group was that it was felt that the town meeting vote that authorized the whole property in the beginning, the assumption there was that it was in perpetuity. And that by making it 30 years, that it wouldn't be in the spirit of the town meeting original articles. So it was set up, and it's that last page of the restriction that really is the piece that puts it in perpetuity, that chapter 184 certification by EOHLC. So if you wanted to really just go with the 30 years, and but then you have to kind of go through this again at that time if you still are going to operate it in this way. But that's an option.
Yeah, my concern is that 30 years from now, it's a whole different generation. And let's say we want to put more buildings there to expand Woodhaven, double it. But we're locked into the number of units, we're locked into pretty much there's so many restrictions in here. Or if we wanted to, again, move Woodhaven, let's say we wanted that site for, I don't know, a school or a fire station or whatever. And we wanted to move Woodhaven to another piece of property. What I'm trying to say is that we're a municipal government. And so we're permanent as an institution. And these covenants are made for private developers who are here today, gone tomorrow, whatever. And to impose this on future generations of residents of the town so that they can essentially do nothing with this property forever seems a little harsh to impose that on future generations.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like changes could be made with the prior approval of the EOHLC. Is that accurate?
You could certainly add another building to the site and all that, but the intention of the restriction is that it's preserving the property as it is, as affordable housing. That's the intention, and that's the requirement for the SHI. You have the option of not being on the SHI. You have the option of making it a 30-year. You have a number of options here. This is really just what the group is presenting, but there's certainly other choices that may or may not work better for you. I don't know.
I mean, personally, I'm in favor of a perpetual restriction, but I'm also the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, so. Anybody else have any?
I guess on that point, I would be interested from other members of the working group to hear any more about what was the conversation around perpetuity versus a 30-year lifespan. Guessing there was some conversation about that and pros and cons to each position.
If I may speak, as I remember the conversation, we really didn't go into the 30-year proposition. We thought the spirit of the town meeting back in 82 and 83 and reading, I've read numerous papers on it when we got started on this project. I think that's what made me feel that in perpetuity was the way to go. But I'm not a legal beagle, and I have to, I'm always open to hearing the other side of the story.
Our emergency
Thanks, Katie.
Geriatric emergency department, that we have resources here to meet this needs. And
Go ahead, Paul.
The suggestion would be to just have an escape clause in here that would say that notwithstanding the foregoing, that if the town of Sherborn relocates the project to another site, I mean, let's say we discover gold on the property. We can't touch the gold because of this restriction. So there'd be a clause that even say with the approval of the state agency, who's got a long acronym, something so that, I mean, we never know what's going to happen in the future.
So Heather, would it be, so, if you go to section 10, casualty, demolition, change of use, and subsection B, where it says, the town shall not, without prior approval of the EOHLC, amend this agreement, et cetera, et cetera. And then the following sentence says, the town shall not demolish any part of the development or substantially subtract, et cetera, et cetera. If in that second sentence, if you also add in without prior written approval of the EOHLC, is that a clause that would essentially allow the town to change of use or demolish or do something else, so long as the appropriate state housing authority at the time provides written approval to do so?
so I think we could carve out possibility for some future changes to be made to this, while keeping it an otherwise perpetual restriction. But as written with the statutes that are cited, it is contemplated that the restriction would not entirely go away. And even if you did not have this restriction on the property was acquired for specific purposes, not only by town meeting vote, but also by special legislation. So this is not a property that's currently held for general municipal purposes that you would just simply be out of the blue imposing a perpetual, very restrictive restriction on. So you would still quite likely have to go through an Article 97 process if you were to take this property out of affordable housing use and put it into something else, or out of elderly housing use, and relocate that elsewhere. The land itself is already somewhat restricted by nature of the authorization that the town received to acquire it in the first place.
There is a pathway that you can change its use, except for this covenant. So if it's Article 97, all that means is you have to get an act of the legislature to authorize it. There's somebody who can authorize it.
Mhm.
So if we did discover gold there, it became the wealthiest community in Massachusetts overnight, we could dig out that gold and move. There is a process, but not under this agreement.
All right, I mean, say, more likely than gold, for example, what if serious contamination is found on the site where it's no longer appropriate to have a Woodhaven there? And, you know, the town may decide to build the equivalent somewhere else. But that sort of eventuality that we can't predict at this point. Be good to have some kind of escape clause.
I think that particular item is covered in that section in 10A about contamination and condemnation, but that might be just a specific.
I guess, Heather, do you get the sense of where this conversation is right now? And do you think that you can alter this section to appease Paul's hesitations?
I would be concerned that however we were to revise this document as is, without changing it from being explicitly stated as a perpetual restriction, that there would be limitations on what you can do, even if we attempt to carve that out. I haven't heard from everyone yet, but I've heard more voices in favor of being less restrictive. So my sense of where this conversation is going right now is that the preference would be not to make this perpetual. And in 30 years from now, or 28 years from now, so there's time to revisit this before the expiration of the initial term, leave it to them the opportunity to decide whether or not they want to create a new restriction or renew this one. But it seems to me, based on the significant concerns that are raised, that it doesn't sound like the board wants this to be a forever restriction.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I like
Well,
the
it's a-
idea of flexibility, I guess I would say. I mean, I'm not sure, 30 years is a long time. I think we should make Alicia and Kitty be on the elder housing for another 30 years also.
We're
But,
all,
but it seems like, that's a long period of time. So I think having a little bit of flexibility, Marian made the strongest points. There could be conditions that require us to do something different.
I mean, it could be, to argue one side of it, could be in perpetuity, but with options for, moving the whole development to another site with permission of HLC, if you like, or with some other permission. But just some sort of escape hatch in case the site runs into serious problems, or the town finds that this same development would be much better somewhere else, or.
But I guess what Liz was saying is that in that scenario where you have some sort of a hazardous waste contamination and this site is not livable, that kind of falls more under the condemnation clause. And
Condemnation is eminent domain.
can you explain more?
That's what condemnation means. That's just another word for it, taking by eminent domain, that the United States takes it by eminent domain.
Okay.
Condemnation doesn't mean that we go there and say we condemn everybody here. It's a legal word for doing an eminent domain taking. Somebody's doing an eminent domain taking.
I mean, it's assuming damage or destruction, a hurricane or whatever, that has to be rebuilt. But say you wanted to rebuild it somewhere else. I mean, I'm just wondering how specific to the site this is.
This site was, these buildings were built in 1982 and 83, if my recollection is correct. So they're already 50 years old, 40 something years old. I mean, how long are these buildings going to last? If you have it in perpetuity, that's 1,000 years from now. And 1,000 years from now, these buildings aren't even going to be there. But this deed restriction will be there forever.
That's right.
Yeah, but I think it would say that essentially you would just have to build more affordable housing here. Right?
Right. Of course, in
On this
1,000 years, we won't have any humans here, so
Yeah.
it's not a problem.
Yeah. I mean, they'll need air conditioning. Right, but my point is that if 30 years from now, the town decides, why don't we build a casino in this location instead? I would prefer that we don't give the town 30 years from now the flexibility to build a casino here, you know?
But why not the proposal that Chief Marriott mentioned, because it's agreeable with me, that if we're not going to use it for affordable housing, we'll relocate it somewhere else of equivalent size and number of units and so on.
I guess my argument would be if the town had the means to build more affordable housing in a different part of town, they should just build the affordable housing in the other part of town. Why would you have to eliminate the affordable housing in this location first?
Because in 1,000 years, you don't know what reasons might come up.
I mean, that would pertain only, say, if the land were unbuildable or if it were desperately needed for another purpose, that the town was willing to spend the money to build it somewhere, to build affordable housing somewhere else in order to fulfill that purpose. I don't know, we could beat this to death, I think. Yeah.
I think I land with Jeff thinking that some degree of flexibility would be useful. I mean, I would be fine, with a 50-year, limit instead of a 30-year limit or whatever, but that 1,000 years seems like a long time.
Okay. This isn't something that we need to vote on, right? I suppose it would be useful for us to vote just so Heather, that the select board want you to change this to a 30-year rather than a in perpetuity. But it's not like we are currently endorsing something, right? Because this is gonna go through further edits and everything from the state, is that right?
That's right. At this point, we're just seeking input as to what you would like us to present to the state. You're not agreeing to sign off on it ultimately.
Yeah.
So I think we can change it to 30 years and
Yeah.
or add some language that not only in the event of taken by eminent domain, but also contamination or casualty, that the town would have the right to provide a in-kind replacement of affordable housing elsewhere. And the 30 years is a specific number because that's the maximum that a restriction is allowed to be on property by the statute of limitations. So once you go beyond the 30, then you have the ability to go up to perpetuity. But I suppose we could make it less than that.
All right, well, it sounds like 4 out of the 5 select board members are in favor of making this a 30-year restriction rather than in perpetuity. I will go on record to say that I am with the working group and I would be in favor of in perpetuity, but this is a democracy, I guess.
No, I must say, I am also would be in favor of perpetuity if there were language that some escape clauses, for unforeseen circumstances.
Me too. I agree with Mary.
Are you
Based on that
confused now,
feedback,
Heather?
no, I think maybe that should be our starting point. I think we're gonna get some feedback from the state on this too. So why don't we start with it being perpetual, but with some of these additional escape hatches. And we will come back to you with a further update. Before we do move on from this though, I also need to mention one thing that's not addressed in this agreement because we need some input on is we haven't identified a monitoring agent for this property. And we should do.
Oh. Okay. How do we do that?
at some point, didn't the Affordable Housing Group and Planning Board and whoever was on it look into that there's a collective group of several towns that have gone together to hire a monitoring group? I think, Liz, you know about that, Concord and other towns.
I do. So they're not monitoring agents, so we work as representatives of the town. And I know that you also voted to appoint me as your monitoring agent, but I'm not really able to be your monitoring agent. I appreciate the vote of confidence, though. The way the restriction is worded, what would be what seems to be the flow that could work about this is that the restriction is held by the trust. The trust is obligated to provide to the town the certification reports every year, and the town would monitor it through the trust. And then instead of bringing in someone else, I mean, you have the group that's actually managing the property, and that's going very well. Like, no one really has any, complaints. But now you've introduced the trust here as holding the restriction, and the detailed responsibilities of the trust are outlined in the document as to providing annual reports to the town on the eligibility of the tenants and the state of the affordable housing compliance, if you will. I personally think that's sufficient, but you could also introduce a third party that you would hire to check up on the trust and the town and the elderly housing, but that seems excessive to me personally, but that's up to you all.
Okay. Anything else? All right. I think we're done with that item. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody. All right. Next. All right. Next, consideration of appointment of cemetery commissioner. This is listed as Diane as the presenter.
Oh, I suppose. We had, Ellen Hepburn had resigned as a cemetery commissioner effective on May 27th, 2025. The expiration date of her elected term would have been at the annual town meeting in 2027. So I placed an ad in the paper and on the website and a press release, and waited for applications to come in, and 2 applications have come in. We have received one from George Fisk and the other one from Robert Duramo, who has expressed an interest in being a cemetery commissioner. And that will be until the May 2026 town election. And at that point, he would have to go back on the ballot if he wanted to continue for a term to expire in 2027. So it'd be up to the board to talk to the 2 candidates that are here tonight and to vote with the remaining 2 commissioners that are here to appoint somebody.
Okay, and because the cemetery commission is an elected commission, then this interim appointment, it's a majority of the combined select. So there's 5, there's 2 of commissioners, so that's 7. So 4 votes is what's
4 to
needed,
7,
right?
Right.
Okay, great. And both volunteer candidates are here. So I guess if you guys want to say something about why you want to be on the cemetery commission, I guess I don't mind who goes first.
So I'm happy to have submitted my name on the application. I've made an attempt, and
Sorry, George, can you identify yourself for the record?
George Fisk, 27 Hollow Street these days, and Sherborn, and I am a lifelong resident of the town, and I'm certainly well acquainted with the cemeteries, multiple cemeteries in town, and had expressed an interest at this juncture because I knew that the cemetery commission had lost a member, one of the members had stepped aside, and it's really helpful, I think, to have a full contingent. And so I saw this as an opportunity to step in and try to be helpful, at least in the short term. I did take it upon myself to speak to a number of people to try to get a sense as to what they were thinking about the cemetery. So I talked to Chucky, who's been chairing it for some time, and I spoke to Gene Hom, and also I called, because I knew Robert had thrown his hat into the ring, I decided to call Robert. I've known Robert for a while.
Quite a while.
And so we had a nice conversation, and I spoke with Ellen Heffron, who had stepped aside, and I spoke with Jeremy, and Diane, I think you and I spoke as well, and others, to try to get a clearer sense of what is involved. I do have not only a history with the town and different town positions, but I serve and have served for many years as chair of the board of Del Park Cemetery, which is in Natick. It's a 501c3 not-for-profit, non-sectarian cemetery, and I've been on the board for close to 40 years. I've been chair probably 35 of those years. And so I've got a pretty good sense of how it operates. I know its operation is different from the way the town's is done. And I think I still would have, and I suspect Robert too, would have a period of learning how things are done. And so I look forward to trying to be helpful in that regard.
Thank you.
My name is Robert Deramo. I live at 65 Washington Street. Been a lifelong resident, not lifelong, but over 60 years here in Sherborn. Matter of fact, when we moved to Sherborn, my second grade class was right there. So I went to secondary school. I did Pine Hill, I did the Sherborn Junior.
I think it has some initials carved on one of the.
In the mortar. I've been in the construction business with my father and my brother my entire life. I retired when I was 66, and I now work at a landscape company in Medfield as a hardscape designer. So I have quite a bit of experience in hardscape, landscape. I'm new to any commission. I've never been on a commission here in the town of Sherborn, but I'm very familiar with the Pine Hill Cemetery in particular. My parents are buried there, and I recently purchased my plot for my wife and I. And during that time, I found that the young lady had stepped down to the position, so I offered myself to become a candidate to participate in the cemetery. There are a few things that I thought would be, that I'd like to work on if I were appointed, and I sort of made a list of things that I'd like to see. I haven't spoken to anybody about them, but they're things that concern me and that would be open. So one thing was, I would think that we could have some street signage, name the streets, so that somebody visiting the cemetery would know if they have a street for the plot, they would know where to go in the cemetery, because it's expanded quite a bit in the past few years recently. I also think that it would be important to have somebody who's installing the headstones have some kind of direction as to how to install them properly so that they're not leaning and falling. Directly opposite my parents is a headstone that's leaning with a seat that's tilting. And it's just sad to see something so new failing, if you will. So that if I would like to see somebody at least to inspect and make sure that they're installed properly so that they don't fall down. And also work on lining up and putting the plots in a geometric pattern so that they're all linear, perpendicular, and straight and parallel to the roads or whatever. Also, water. I think it's important that we have water up there. I know I used to tap at the green tank to get water. Now I have to bring it with me when I come to the cemetery, but it would be nice to have water available to people who may find it difficult to bring water to the cemetery. Tree removal. I actually worked with somebody, we marked some of the trees and they have been taken down, so that was a nice thing to see. And I think that really, I have a few other things, but those are mostly the things that I was interested in most, to see if we could work on those.
Thank you very much. I see Jean and Chucky, you're both here, and I guess I wanted to get your guys' input as well on these two young men.
It's too late at night for me. You know, it's 9:15, guys.
I'd just say that I've spoken to Bob and I've spoken to George previously, but it depends on, I think, what our primary needs are. And what I would like to see is Bob has the ability to be there and he understands the landscape, and as he's at hardscape, I believe. So I think that's important. That's one thing I would love to have some consistent view, control over.
I think we're leaving out the fact that the important thing we do is bury people. It's much more important than the landscape. And I think we're doing a pretty good job with the landscaping. Right now, we have people we've hired that are mapping, fixing our maps. It's never going to be all straight lines. It was designed by the people who designed Mount Auburn as a garden cemetery to go with the topography in the 1850s, and we're not going to be able to necessarily move all the lot lines to straight lines. But I still think that burying people and working with families and spending time with families is the most important thing we do.
Who do you recommend?
I think either one of them would probably be fine. Both good men.
Could I clarify, when I said perpendicular and parallel, I didn't mean rigid like New York City. I meant that some kind of a system that would work with the paths that are there, with the contours of the land, with something that's more geometric and fitting to the flow of property in the streets, rather than having straight, square.
This is a administrative question. Can we not appoint them both or approve them both?
Yeah, one of them basically, it's, yeah.
What we could do is to have
But
one,
State law has 3 commissioners for municipal cemeteries.
have one who can appoint one elected, and we can ask one to be, to ask the cemetery commission to make the other an associate non-voting member.
right, that's kind of what I had in mind. We've done that for others.
In case one of the other commissioners retires or
Yeah,
gets
or
hit
is
by
not
a bus.
available for a vote or whatever.
Yeah,
Because these are two great candidates,
outstanding.
outstanding candidates. I mean, George, your service to the town goes yet another step beyond the amazing amount of service you've already made to the town. And I think you're both great. It would be great to have the expertise of landscaping and hardscaping up there. So
I would make maybe an additional comment, and that is that I've talked with Robert. I think Robert would be an excellent cemetery commissioner. And I think I told him so. But, and I also, I'm not certain of this, but my guess he's going to take the longer view, meaning when, if he's appointed, maybe even if he isn't appointed, that he would be running next year and would perhaps run again when the term is up. I view my position as really intermediate. I've done that for a couple of other positions in town. I've done it for your job 3 times. And I found that rewarding, and I like to think I've been helpful in that instance. I also talked to Robert and said that if I was appointed, that I would ask him to attend our meetings. Now, as an associate, I think is an added benefit, because I think maybe the communication would be enhanced that way. But I would also say that if you thought it made sense to appoint Robert to that, then I will show up for meetings anyway. So, I'd like to be involved, at least in the near term. I think perhaps longer term might be more. And I do say, Robert, I know Robert's skills. I've hired him myself. Some of the work that he's done up there is exceptional. And I think it's going to, I think be very, very helpful. So I don't know if I'm being helpful to you now.
Well, I will say I was surprised to hear, George, that you were volunteering. I know that you've given so much of your time already to the town. And I don't know, I don't want to let the opportunity pass by for the town to have you serve, even briefly, in another official capacity. And I was also quite surprised to see your extensive experience with cemeteries. I'm like, is there anything that you don't do? I personally, I think that your sort of experience there in terms of presumably understanding of cemetery operations might be rather beneficial, especially even in an interim role, and potentially to basically help bring Bob along and introduce. I'm assuming that you don't have a lot of experience with sort of operations of cemeteries in general, or
Not particularly the cemetery, so construction.
Right.
landscaping, that, yes.
right. But the some of the more nebulous administrative aspects of cemeteries. So I think that it's to me, I think it's great that both of you seem like you are committed to at least attending cemetery commission meetings for the near future. So whichever way we go, I think that hopefully both of you will be contributing and essentially giving Chucky and Jean sort of more manpower, leg power to get stuff done. But me personally, I would be inclined, I think, to vote for George, given your quite extensive contributions to this town already in your career.
I want to present an alternative view, if I may. George knows that I'm one of his biggest fans. There's no question about that. But as he himself pointed out, Robert is in for the long haul. And I think the operations is something that can be learned. And especially if George were to agree to be an associate and go to the meetings, you'd have a tutor right there at your side. So just, you have not served in other capacities with the town. I appreciate your volunteering for this, and I would like to suggest that we appoint, how do you prefer to be called? Robert. And George as an associate.
So thank you both for volunteering to do this. It's a complete embarrassment of riches and great candidates. I think I fall in line with Steve, thinking that George brings the experience. I was struck by your work with Del Park Cemetery. I had no idea and saw that, wow, that really would be some valuable experience. I would love it if it could work out that, George, you were appointed to the position, and Robert, if you were willing to serve as an associate member with an expectation that, in the future you might run for that position and have that position, that would strike me as a really fine way to bring both of the skill sets to the cemetery commission. So that's where I would land.
Paul or Jeff?
I mean, I sort of agree with both entities. I mean, it seems to me like they'll both be involved, so it's really sort of a, moot point as to who we make the associate versus the full member. My support would be with Marion's idea, just because George knows so much. He could be the elder statesman, in my view, as an associate member, directing some of their sort of practices. Whereas, what was his name? Bob, is it?
Yeah,
could be, more active in, he talked about specific improvements and things. So I would see Marion's proposal making the most sense to me. Bob, would be doing more long-term, and George would be almost sort of a at-large counselor, if you will, sort of helping them transition and improve, because the cemetery's had a lot of challenges recently, and there's been a lot of things done there with the water. Susie Tyler was involved forever with the water drainage issues that were there, and cleaning and organizing and restoring so many of the gravestones was a labor of love. And I think George would be able to sort of be an elder statesman. So I support Marion. I'm sure you made a motion, Marion, but I agree with you.
Paul?
So right now we're at 2-2, and I wonder if the two of you
Yeah,
could talk
we just
and
chatted
work
about
out.
it, and if it's helpful, what we're thinking is what Marion was suggesting. And that is that Robert be appointed as the interim, but I would serve. I'd like to know a little bit more about what my role as associate, what I'd be limited to doing, would I be privy to the kinds of information I'd want to know about relative to the cemetery commission. And, I'm happy to serve in that role, and Robert would be happy, I think, to have me do that, and he would be appointed to the cemetery commission.
Well, I think there should be one restriction, that you can't do any heavy labor and no digging and no handling of bodies and things like that. But if you accept those kind of limitations.
I would like to play a role on a relatively short-term basis, and, whether it's between now and the next year's town election, maybe that makes sense. Now I can see possibly 1 year beyond that, but at least until the next year's election. And
So my view is that both of you are outstanding. I know George, and I am eternally grateful to all the things you've done for the community, George. Very much in your debt, and I think I speak for the whole community. And I'm delighted that a new volunteer has come forward. We are constantly looking for new volunteers. Someone once said, gee, the town is run by like 100 people, and there's keep changing offices and so on and so on. It's wonderful to expand the volunteerism, because this town runs on volunteerism. So the notion that that both of you should be intimately involved in the cemetery commission is one that I agree with. So I think what I'd start is with a motion that we would create an associate position for the cemetery commission, who would have full access to the books and records of the commission and the ability to attend commission meetings, but not vote, and would receive correspondence, minutes, all the usual things that an ordinary member would receive. So that would be my suggested first motion.
Do we have the authority to create that position, or is that reserved for the cemetery commission?
We're very regulated by state law.
So
I believe this.
I'm trying to,
Yes, go ahead.
Gene Hahn, 257 Washington Street. I believe the cemetery commission has to meet to determine how we structure ourselves. Now, I'm not saying anything contrary to what George and Bob were talking about. I think we're the ones who are responsible for the commission, so.
And actually, if I can pause, my apologies. Since the two of you are a quorum, I think you guys need to open a meeting of the cemetery commission, right?
While we were waiting training.
You did in the hall. Perfect. Thank you.
Cemetery commissions.
We know what we're doing.
Thank you. So I guess, is it your position that essentially we can't create,
I don't know if you can or not, we can look at the state law and see, but it says in the law that there are 3 commissioners elected and that they have sole responsibility for the cemetery. Doesn't see anything yes or no about having associates.
I think in the unusual circumstance, this is my point of view, in the unusual circumstance of having to go to the board, select board, to appoint a new voting member of the commission, that's a sort of a gray area between we meet when we meet, you meet when you meet. So in that sense, we listen to each other and we take the information. And I think what George and Robert have been talking about is something that we would definitely include. But ultimately, we're here to appoint a voting member.
I was gonna say, I love the fact that the 2 of them are talking to each other
Right.
and working together in a way already. I don't see any adversarial position, which sometimes you do when 2 people are running for the same slot. And I think
No,
that's
we
good.
did such a thing fairly recently,
Excuse me?
as you recall, with the Town Forest Committee. We had, and for the North Sherborn Water District Interim Commission, we had really good candidates. They all wanted to be involved, willing to be associate members. And in the case of the Water Commission, we appointed 3 associate members.
And we can always use people's ideas.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a contradiction here. I think technically speaking, though, we're looking for a voting member.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of my minor hangup right now is just like with the interim water commission, with town forest, those are committees that are appointed by the select board,
Right.
but they are an elected commission. They run themselves, you know, and so, you know,
That's true.
I think for me, part of the reason why my preference is for George right now is because of the fact that, you know, a lot of the decisions to be made by the commission collectively might be more policy level decisions or sort of operational level decisions, things that I think that George probably has, I mean, with what, 40 years as one of the trustees of a cemetery, I'm assuming that you have inherently a great deal of knowledge in that arena. And so if next week the commission needs to meet and make a decision about something, you are basically there ready to step in and be one of the 3 votes regarding some sort of a cemetery related policy. And Robert can take the next several months to essentially ramp up and get up to speed, understanding how these sorts of things work without the pressure of being one of the 3 votes. It is a pressure that I am assuming that George, you are comfortable taking on. So for me, that is why my preference is for George.
I know, I'm going to let you speak in a moment. I would counter that there are others on the Cemetery Commission who are very experienced at this point and that provide plenty of, you know, administrative and say the kind of experience you're referring to. And if we were to appoint Robert, who really would have a longer term commitment, he would have a better chance of being elected at the next town election. Whereas if he's not officially connected to the commission, he becomes an unknown at the next town election. So if our long view is that we'd like to see someone like Robert, specifically Robert, committed to this, and George as an interim support, I still would go with appointing Robert.
So it looks like the idea of a associate member isn't being accepted by the cemetery commission, who has got a quorum meeting, and they could have adopted it. So if the choice then is to choose between these 2 without having an associate member,
Did I hear that clearly? Is the existing cemetery commission not on board with having an associate member?
My view is simply that, I don't know what the term would be. I would love for George to be participating, particularly because of his experience and all that. But, that's just a word to me. I think the issue is, we've heard this, I've heard very clearly what your preference is to have some experience in the mix, given that you have the luxury of 2 candidates, not just 1. And I don't think that there's any contradiction in that. What the word is not something that's important to me at the moment. I think the voting members of the committee have to make that determination if you were looking for a word. But no, I would definitely want George to participate.
I think we can always use as many good minds as are willing to volunteer.
And technically speaking, we're an open meeting, so anybody could join us as system.
How do you feel about if there's whatever the term is, associate member or additional volunteer, having access to cemetery records and some of the things that George mentioned?
They're public records, so.
They're all public, there's nothing.
I don't see the
at
contradiction,
all.
only except that if there's certain information that's confidential, private, not publicly available quickly, I don't know.
There isn't any, other than if you're talking to a family, and they tell you something. But even that, if we did a burial this afternoon, I wouldn't necessarily call up Gene and tell him everything the family said to me.
Yeah.
But in terms of the records, I work with the people, Gene is doing the computers, and we're beginning to get more online, which I know is something that Jeremy would really like us to do. We're working on that, we're digitizing all the lot cards. We've been working with Tony to update, Tony in the town clerk's office to update the deed index, which has a ton of information in it. So we're really trying to get a lot more of the stuff done electronically, which I think these folks would like us to do. We've got a little office now where we can actually put a computer and a guy here that knows how to do it, because I don't, and I don't want to learn. I like to work with the people. But we can always use ideas. We can always, you can't have too many good people offering to help you.
Okay.
Well, I think I'm not even sure where we're at, so I'm gonna call the hand right now. And I'm going to move that we appoint George Fisk as a cemetery commissioner. And I'm gonna see where the cards fall.
And I'll second that.
All right. It's moved and seconded. So now this is a combined vote of the select board and the cemetery commission. So there are 7 total votes and 4 votes will be necessary to pass the motion. All right, Marion?
Yeah.
Oh, she said, yeah.
There's no bad decision here. So, yeah, I'd like to abstain until I hear other votes.
All right, well, I'm going to come back to you. Dan?
I'm a yes.
Paul?
Yes, for George Fisk.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm in Marion's camp. I think I'll vote yes because it's going to already have 3 anyway.
Yeah,
I think the problem here is we really
But it needs 4.
encourage Bob to be active and to be a candidate in the future. So Marion's made some good points. So I certainly support George and I'll vote yes, but I think we need to figure out a solution here to have both be in some formal role.
Chucky?
I like what Jeff said. And especially including Robert and everything, keeping him up to speed on what we're doing. And this is a 1-year appointment. It only goes until next May. It's less than a year. And it gives him a good chance to really get up to speed. And to be honest with you, something Marion said, I don't see a whole lot of people coming forward next year to run for that 1-year term.
All right, so Chucky, is your vote yes for George?
Sure.
Jean?
I'm gonna be, I'm gonna vote for Robert B.
All right, so
Mainly because of what Marianne was pointing out.
so that's a no on the current motion, which is for George. All right. I'm gonna come back to Marion.
It's now 3-3. Jeff is a reluctant
it's-
yes.
I
Oh,
think
it's 4 to
I think
3.
it's 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it's-
I don't want to slow this down anymore, so I'll vote yes, but with a lot of support for supporting Robert to come forward next spring.
All right, Marion is yes. Jeff?
Yeah, I thought I already said yes, but
Oh,
yeah.
did you already say yes? Sorry, my bad. And I am also a yes. So I believe the motion carries then 6-1.
6-1.
All right. Thank you very much. And
Can I reiterate what's been said here about Robert? I very much want to see you acting as an associate member. I didn't press that vote because of what the Cemetery Commission said, but really want to see you feel comfortable helping the Cemetery Commission as much as you can.
And I very much appreciate the suggestions that you had for things that, will be worth, working on and thinking about.
all right, thank you very much.
Get out of here, you already know.
All right. Our next item is consideration of an appointment to the Historical Commission.
Kevin is here.
All right.
Yes.
And this is the only candidate for it, right? So I don't know, Kevin, do you want to just say a word about yourself and your interest in the Historical Commission?
Yeah, thank you. I'm aware of your hour. My name is Kevin Shea. My wife and I are 2 kids. Unlike many people here, I'm a relative new. We've been in town for 3 years. We came from Washington, D.C., where I have lived for more than 30 years. Not because we didn't like that, but because we were looking for a different vibe. And we found exactly what we were looking for. I love this town. I'm a lawyer by training. I spent, I now am not working full time, which is one of the reasons that I'm able to consider something like this. I've been looking, and actually talking with George Fisk about opportunities that fit my skill set, my interests, that don't have as much conflict to them, which is my day job. Historic preservation is something that I've had a taste of in my practice, mostly railroad bridges and depots. This town is filled with beautiful sites and structures. And so for me, it's very interesting to me to become involved in helping to maintain and preserve and occasionally advise this board on historic preservation issues. I noted that the commission is charged with watching policy, federal and state policy on historic preservation issues. That's something that they're interested in doing. And I'm curious to find out and start with my ears and not my mouth if I'm appointed. What, if anything, the commission has done to try to get the educational angle in. Because I think getting the adults, I think, are aware they moved here, they came here in part because of the flavor of the town and the housing sites. But the kids, I don't know if they realize that not every town is like this, not even in New England, there's a town. So I'm interested in learning, if I'm appointed, from my colleagues, if they've thought about trying to leverage in that way, which is not strictly speaking preservation, except that it gets the mentality
into, younger people, how it's important to preserve. And we are not a museum. We are not able to literally keep everything just how it is forever. But there's an important element, at least I think, to consider preservation in all decision making. So that's why I'm interested in
Great. You sound perfect.
And I move to appoint Kevin Shea to the Historic Commission for a term to expire June 15, 2028.
I enthusiastically second.
All right. It is moved and seconded. Marion,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
Hi.
and I'm I as well. Congratulations and thank you for your volunteering.
Thanks.
You're almost last on the
we have one more, yeah.
Agenda before you come up.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have consideration of farm pond appointment. So this one is Jackie Martin. I don't see.
She's not here.
All right. I didn't know who lot owner was.
So can I move to appoint Jackie Martin for a term to expire June 15, 2028?
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. Marion,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
Hi.
and I'm I as well. All right. Amelia, you're up.
Seems like it's easier to get appointed when you're not here.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I do have a little visual part of my presentation. And
Sure.
I can just on that quickly. I will be brief. This is mostly an informational presentation, but I do want to get, I don't think it'll require a vote, but to get, some kind of approval. Thank you. For submitting a grant that is due in 19 minutes and 2 hours.
Wow.
Hopefully this will go smoothly. So
We love grants. Ready to move them
Magic word.
So we are currently designated by the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources as a green community. And Green Communities also has a new sort of more advanced program tacked onto that for qualifying green communities to then become climate leaders. So I would like to advance us towards getting access to the benefits from being climate leaders as a climate leader community in Sherborn. Next slide, please. Basically, so far, the Green Communities program over the past 15 years has raked in a couple $100,000 of funding for various improvements to municipal operations in terms of energy efficiency and decarbonization, which is in alignment with the sort of expressed interests of the town, specifically, I'll get to it later, but declaration of town meeting with climate emergency and things like that. In summary, we've had about $300,000 awarded and an estimated $300,000 saved in operational costs by these measures. We've also saved about 900 metric tons of equivalent of carbon or CO2 emissions. And we have an estimated about 25% reduction in town energy use, which is just overall helpful for projecting our future. The Climate Leaders Program then, in addition to doing some of these same kinds of projects, just gives us more resources to work with, more funding, and also a wider berth of projects that we would be able to pursue. Next slide. So sort of working in parallel, the Green Communities has basically 3 grants that they offer in the planning stage, and then the design stage, and then finally in the construction stage. The regional energy planning assistance grants are usually just ones that are to ascertain what assets you have. The municipal energy technical assistance grants are about $25,000 per green community per year for these kinds of feasibility studies or engineering plans, such as if you were going to take on a large retrofitting project or things like that. And then finally, there are the competitive grants, which are a maximum of $225,000 per green community, and they would allow you to take on projects for full building decarbonization, including the costs of actually implementing those measures, not just planning. In this same vein, Climate Leaders offers a very sort of similar pattern, but for much bigger numbers. So I'm actually going to skip over to the technical support grants, which are $150,000, 6 times the Green Communities grants. And then $1 million per climate leader community for competitive grants that are even more widely spread of what you're allowed to do, including additional support for constructing new buildings and installing solar projects, which was not previously contained under Green Communities. In particular, I want to talk about the Decarbonization Roadmap Assistance Grant. It would allow us to create a fairly standard document called a decarbonization roadmap that basically is sort of like a miniature capital plan for evaluating what assets the municipality currently has and what it would take, both in cost and also time, to update them to sort of the best practices, most standard current technologies for meeting decarbonization goals declared by the town. So with that being said, next slide please. The grant in question would have us looking at these requirements to qualify as a climate leader. We have already been consistently keeping up with the requirements for being a green community, which you can see there on the left. And on the right are the climate leader ones. We successfully do have a climate committee. Holliston doesn't, which is strange to me. We do have a commitment to municipal decarbonization, as was listed, I believe, in the 2022 town meeting is when that was adopted. I'll skip down to number 5. We have adopted the opt-in specialized building code, which is something that a lot of other communities have struggled with. And for number 6, we do not currently have any active moratoriums on ground-mounted solar or battery storage, to my knowledge. Feel free to correct me, which is part of being a green community in good standing. The only other 2 things that we would have to do in order to qualify for the Climate Leaders program is to have you guys adopt a specific policy, which I will get into in a second, and also to create a municipal decarbonization roadmap, which is what the grant is for, that we're submitting in 2 hours. So if you'll move to the next slide, please, I'll talk a little bit about what the goals for that would be. This would only be a roadmap for municipal operations. It would not be decarbonizing the entire town. It would not have any obligations for residents or commercial. I know that we don't have a lot of commercial, but in theory. And it sort of uses this net zero overtime approach, which is basically taking a plan that does not say, here's the years that we're going to replace these technologies. It's instead saying, this technology is probably going to fail in this year. So in that year, we're going to plan to have funding available to replace it. For example, looking at the age of our boilers and things like that, or looking at our current plan for vehicle replacement and seeing where electrification can slot in there. I won't go over all the guidelines for existing buildings or renovations, but essentially it's just trying to use best practices to make sure that we're not building anything that we are inevitably going to later have to electrify or decarbonize anyhow to meet our town's decarbonization goals. So in order to help write this, the Green Communities program, next slide, will cover 100% of the consulting services required to do a basically just desktop analysis of the existing building data we have. What they want for this grant application is for us to prove that our climate committee would be able to take on this kind of planning grant, and we're currently, we have executed the climate action and resilience plan, so yes, and the most recent meeting minutes reflect that. We have already collected data on our facilities. Not only does the Green Communities program use the Mass Energy Insight platform, but we've also been doing the on-site insight studies, and we're about to do those again, which will give us even better information. And then there is the thing that I basically prompted us to bring this before you, is that they want a letter of commitment from the CEO, or in our case, the town administrator, to meet all the other climate leader requirements within 1 year of us getting access to this grant. So basically what it's saying is, we are most suited to this grant the closer we are to having the rest of our climate leader qualifications met. And so far we have 4 out of 6, which is really good. The only other policy that we would then be committed to adopting by virtue of submitting this grant would be, next slide, the Zero Emission Vehicle First Policy, which is a mouthful, so I just call it ZEV. Sean's leaving because he can't stand it when I talk about this. Basically, this is a policy that says that the town, when it is replacing vehicles, will consider replacing them with alternative fuel vehicles, which in California means hydrogen, but here means battery powered electric or plug-in hybrid. It does not mean every vehicle that we replace is going to be an EV. For example, currently under the guidance from the state, off-road vehicles, heavy-duty vehicles that are above 8,500 pounds, and some emergency vehicles like fire engines, ambulances, and like some snowplows and things like that are all exempt. But for all other vehicles, like a little council and aging car and things like that, it basically means that we will prioritize battery electric vehicles for the first choice of what would make sense for us to replace those cars with when they fail. So the 3 steps that you go through is, once a vehicle has been identified for replacement, and that includes vehicles that just break and we need to replace them immediately, or vehicles where we know that they kind of have a lifespan, or vehicles that have been identified on the capital plan, which I will point out, we already have appropriated a lot for replacing these vehicles in the future. Once we have identified that vehicle, if on the market presently there is a zero emission vehicle that will meet the needs that that vehicle would be serving. So for example, if there is no such pickup truck on the market that is electric, that would be able to haul the things that we want that car for, we simply won't consider it. We're not trying to limit municipal operations by virtue of what we would be replacing our fleet with. I just sort of threw up here that we've already acquired some electric or hybrid vehicles, and they've been serving mostly police. And we've already approved some additional appropriations for these vehicles to continue being replaced with electric and hybrid. So it's already a matter of policy, if not being directly adopted. So when it's identified for replacement, if a vehicle replacement exists that would be appropriate, the town will prioritize its purchase. If the town finds that the economics are simply infeasible, if it's found that we don't have the charging infrastructure for it, or we don't, what they currently want on the market for it is $50,000 over what we would get for an internal combustion engine vehicle, then we are encouraged to pass it up and just look for the next opportunity. I will highlight that there are currently incentives in the state of Massachusetts and utility incentives for both the vehicles themselves and also charging infrastructure. Just between the 2 chargers, the level 2 charger and the level 3 charger that we currently have on the town hall campus, that can support around the clock around 10 vehicles. So we are way below the budget for what would be necessary for anything that would park here. So anything associated with the library, 1858, town hall, police station, the church, although they don't count. Considering that EVs do have lower maintenance costs, there is sort of folded into this policy a responsibility by the municipality, and pretty much me, that's what I'll be doing, figuring out what the sort of smartest economic plan is for figuring out when new models come on the market, how they might be sufficient to fulfill the needs of vehicles we foresee replacing, so that when that vehicle needs replacing, we already have an idea in mind, and that this policy is not a hindrance to making sure that the fleets continue to operate. Last slide. In conclusion, I would love it if you said, yes, submit that grant, which includes that letter of commitment to within a year adopt the ZEV policy, because we only have 2 hours to send the email, so please
Is
ask
the
me
letter
any
written?
questions that we would, appreciate copies.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yep.
So pretty much for the last couple of years, we have been doing this. Whenever anybody comes in with a truck or car, we ask, can we get an electric vehicle? So we are already asking the question. Unfortunately, the answer always is no, because, and the because is always persuasive. We defer to our department head. So if our department head says it doesn't have enough strength, it doesn't have enough speed, or it doesn't have this or that, we don't do it. So if that's all this is that we're going to be committing to doing what we're already doing, then this is like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just makes it official that the questions we're already asking, we're just going to note it in the minutes that we asked the question.
Are there requirements, are there particular requirements for charging stations as a prerequisite?
Within this policy?
Mhm.
No, basically, so long as the municipal operations are not disrupted by the policy, you can kind of do whatever. So currently, because charging is just kind of one of those things that can be expensive to initially implement, that's often the stumbling block I found when I've been talking to other climate leaders that have adopted this policy when they've been trying to get it done. But considering that we are not yet at capacity on the town hall campus, I think we do have a pretty good runway to, once this policy has been adopted, to develop a plan that allows us to accommodate for those additional expenses that would make it possible to electrify the municipal fleets over time.
So the grant will give us funds to hire a consultant and work with various committees and yourself to develop a decarbonization roadmap. So obviously we'll have, ample opportunity to inform that and tailor that roadmap to Sherborn's situation. If it did come back, however, that it was just not feasible, is the town obligated to follow that roadmap?
I don't believe so. I believe at the end of the roadmap construction process, you're supposed to submit it before the appointing body to approve it. I think if it comes back negative, if the appointing body is like, no, we do not agree with this, I think it's just a matter of revision rather than full, outright rejection of the climate leaders program.
What's the dollar amount of the grant?
Well, for the, it's just a 100% match for the decarbonization roadmap, so.
So it's whatever,
Yeah.
so hire a consultant that
They assume we'll
comes in
spend
at,
less than $100,000 on a consultant, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay,
Maybe they can evaluate the library.
yeah. And I was just thinking the process through, and of course, the advisory committee plays a role too, because they go back and forth with department heads on kind of refining requests. And Paul's description suggests that we would be writing a letter of commitment that would really just describe what we already do, and that would cover. I'm just trying to understand if there's any space between what we already do and what the letter of commitment would be committing us to, and whether we're just saying, yeah, we already do this, or is the ZEV actually going beyond in some dimension what we already do?
So the ZEV is a written policy. They have a recommended verbiage for it, but obviously it varies from town to town. It's not a bylaw, it doesn't need to be adopted by town meeting, but it is something that has specific standards within it for a recommended sort of decision-making pipeline that's just sort of designed to make the process less cumbersome, so that every single time you want to approve something like this, it doesn't have to come up again. In the sense that I know that other towns have not wanted to adopt this because they've been resistant to municipal fleet electrification. I think that what this offers us an opportunity to do is to just sort of codify what we are already doing and say that even though we're not approving every single vehicle for various practical reasons. That's still allowed for within the policy. So the policy demonstrates that we still ultimately have that ideal commitment to being able to, over time, electrify the municipal fleets.
So is there anybody that is sort of like auditing the town in terms of, that's nice that you have this ZEV policy, but we've looked at what you've done over the past 2 years and you're not really following it, so therefore we are revoking your climate leader community status?
Not necessarily. I will say that, so I worked previously for the DOER with the Green Communities Division. I was in the room when they were deciding who gets their competitive grants for last year. And they definitely did look at other factors aside from people's applications, and some of it included just basic compliance. Like if one of the criterion to qualify to be a green community is to reduce the town's overall emissions from a baseline year by 20% in 5 years. And while that's a mouthful, a lot of towns sometimes get to 20% and just kind of coast on that. And so that is something that would make towns less likely to qualify, or less likely to actually be awarded those competitive grants. I would also say that because they can see from our annual reporting for green communities what fleet adjustments we have made, if they note that we're asking for money for a certain thing that is not in line with how our previous behaviors have actually panned out, then I imagine that at least for the competitive grant, they would have, they do in fact have the bandwidth to check in on whether our policies are taking effect and whether we are taking it seriously. And there's the potential to not win that $1 million as we would maybe like.
It's an annual reporting requirement that every year we submit an annual report for green communities.
For green communities.
For green community, presumably there'll be a similar annual report for the Climate Leaders Program.
And there's a research.
Maybe the same platform, but additional requirements. One of those annual reports is do they have a fleet inventory, and any changes to our fleet, we have to report to them through the Green Communities portal.
Steve, I think Sean had a comment. Yep.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a point, and I didn't purposely get up as she started. But that's the most reasonably written policy I've seen to date. In fact, it's more reasonable than the current state law that Massachusetts adopted for medium and heavy duty emission standards, which they follow in California, and there's a stay on it because it can't force it because the manufacturers can't keep up with it. So it takes that into account. And currently, the only vehicles in the fleet that wouldn't be theoretically exempt is the police fleet, which of course he's making strides on that. My shop, everything is exempt to that standard, other than in a few months I'll get a hand-me-down Tahoe that we already own. So you
don't see anything here that is, to come back to my earlier question, that would create any space between more or less what we already do and what
I think it's definitely codifying just what we're doing now.
Jeremy, same thought?
Yeah, great, yeah. No, because when I read it, I'm like, well, this is already the mental process that at least I go through anytime some kind of new vehicle is coming up. So I'm like, is there a catch here? Are we,
we're all searching for that catch. I'm not seeing it. I mean, this is going to unlock some grant funds to help us put together a roadmap.
Yeah.
Right. And, there's going to be a lot of folks to inform that roadmap. We would want to steer that roadmap towards what makes sense for your community.
And Chief Galvin, presumably same thought that.
I mean, he's driving our one full EV vehicle. He was like, great purchase. I'm taking that for myself.
I think there will be a ripple of concern from some members of advisory.
So I will mention that the way that this actually then pans out, at least for all the other climate leader communities who have participated in this, is this period is when I sort of rally support from the interested stakeholders, from everyone who manages the municipal fleets and things like that. So I will not be coming back to you in 2 weeks with like, okay, great, let's adopt the ZV policy, but I'll instead be trying to work with everyone who would have a say on it to make sure that all those concerns are addressed before we actually sign something.
Great. So I guess you need a vote from us to, I guess,
Authorize the letter.
Yeah, authorize the letter seeking the grant, and then does that all, and also includes authorizing Jeremy to write a letter with a commitment within the year.
Which he has done. He was just hoping you'd say yes.
Right. All right, so,
56 minutes.
all right, so someone want to make a motion?
So move.
All right,
Second,
all right, moved and seconded. Marion,
aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Paul,
All right.
Jeff,
Aye.
and I'm I as well.
It's cute to get a grant for doing what we're already doing.
Yeah.
We were-
I was like, there's something I'm missing here. Something is.
I'm just gonna switch tabs and email.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Amelia.
Yeah,
Very
thanks,
nice
that was a good
presentation.
job.
Yes. And I do, Amelia, I just wanted to say you are excellent.
Thank you.
Oh.
I'm glad you liked the graphic design.
It's good presentation. It's that Wellesley training.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, next item, yearly appointment of election workers.
Now, Jackie's not here tonight for this,
Okay.
because she's getting ready to fly out at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, geez.
Um,
I got one little correction.
and what would that be?
Well, there's this mystery woman in here, Susan Tyre of Belchertown. I think they mean Susan Tyler.
Oh, let me see, what
But-
is it? Oh, tire, yeah, okay, it's just a little typo. We'll
Missing
take care of
Have the
that,
right person.
we'll take care of that. It's just
Maybe
Tyler.
Susan Tyre is great too,
She
you
lives in
know?
Belgium now.
He's been on the call, all night long.
Oh, Sue?
Susie's been on the call as lot owner. If you saw.
Oh, was that her? Oh,
Bother me.
was.
That was Susie.
Was that Susie Water?
Yeah, she was
Okay.
here for a prior agenda item.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but she
Jumped
wouldn't
off.
have been appointed but for this little bit of change here. The actual name of Tyler.
She always appears on select board meetings with some fabricated name. That's her shtick.
All right.
So I move to approve the nomination of the town clerk of the names on the list that's contained in our packet. I don't want to read them all. That's what I'm trying to say.
But with the amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the amendment.
And I think the motion as written in here specifies the appointment date being September 1st, 2025 to August 31st, 2026. So can you accept that friendly amendment? All right.
And I second the amended motion.
All right. Moved and seconded. Marion,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and I'm I as well. Okay, Sean, wow, thank you for your patience. So next item is ratifying, consideration to ratify employment agreement with DPW Director Sean Colleen.
So can I make the motion to approve the Department of Public Works Director Facilities Manager employment agreement between the town of Sherborn and Sean Colleen with an effective date beginning July 1, 2025?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Marion,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
Nay.
and I'm I. Motion carries 4-1. All right. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, next item, consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it. Moved and seconded. Marion,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and I'm I as well. Okay, next we have select board reports. I have nothing. Anybody have any
Don't
reports?
tell me you got 12 different items.
All right, seeing none. Town administrator update.
Sure, just several for you. A few announcements for grants. We received a grant from Mass DOT for the installation of 2 RRFBs. Those are pedestrian beacons. They'd be located on South Main Street, Route 27, at Goulding Street and at Cider Hill Lane. The grant from Mass DOT valued about $50,000. They provide the equipment. And then the town would install them and also perform some other improvements to make them safe crossings. Sean's all over it, working with a contractor to scope out what those installations may look like. Also, the South Main Street culvert carrying Sewell Brook. We talked about that in the past. Sean has that scheduled to begin next Tuesday. The contractor will be mobilizing to do that lining of the culvert. There should be no impact to the traveling public. There might be a lane closure, but Route 27 will remain open. 2 days of work, 3 days?
They estimated, yeah.
Yeah, so it should be a pretty quick operation, should be done by the end of next week. And we just heard that schedule today, so we'll get something up on the website to announce to folks, but really shouldn't be any impact to the public, other than, they'll see the work going on. Want to let you know the police department, starting next week, has a big milestone that they're meeting. They have an assessment meeting towards their accreditation. It's a big milestone for them. They have to meet with the assessment committee made up of other chiefs and other folks to help them determine if they're worthy to be accredited. So congrats to the chief and his team for getting to that milestone. Crossed out a couple updates to move things along. But wanted to leave you with one more piece of good news by way of a grant. We've received word from the Holbrook Regional Dispatch that they will be funding the replacement of the police and fire backup generators.
Wow.
To the tune of about $200,000.
Wow.
Again, kudos to the chiefs and Sean for putting forward those proposals and for receiving that grant. So that'll include the full replacement, equipment, the labor, the installation.
Who's the actual grantor of that grant?
It comes from the state, I think 911 funds or others. Yeah, so it comes through the state to Holbrook, then Holbrook kind of allocates what they get out, but they've decided to award Sherborn about $200,000 in replacements.
Did you have to apply for that or?
Yep.
Kudos, that's
Well
great.
done.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll leave you with that positive update.
All right.
Before we leave, in your report last meeting, you said bids on Laurel Farm irrigation project are due to be received on July 11th.
Yes.
What happened?
We did receive 2 bids. The bids came in above the amount available for the project. So the Recreation Commission is currently considering alternatives. As submitted, the bids we cannot award a contract for the bids. They're outside of the available funds. So currently the bids cannot be accepted and the contract cannot be awarded. The Recreation Commission is considering their next steps.
Are we going forward with the final design and specifications from the engineer on the Jameson Field tennis pickleball court?
Yep, we've received the final design plans and specifications, and I'll be putting that together in an IFB to be published within the next couple of weeks. There's been a permit or a NOI file with the Conservation Commission because there is some work within jurisdiction. Joyce, our conservation agent, actually helped put together and helped us file that. So thanks to her to help minimize some of the costs to put that design together. But that'll be out on the street within the next couple of weeks. It'll be advertised for a good month or so, and then we'd have a bid opening and award at that time. So we're on track to have a bid opening, late summer, early fall, and have a contractor on board then.
Great. Good news, thank
you. All right, thank you. So we still have several executive session items. So with that, I am going to move that we re-enter executive session. We are not going to return to open session. So we can consider this, thank you, Sean. Consider this the end of the public session of our meeting. Thank you, Amelia. So I move that we re-enter executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Marion,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
Hi.
and I'm I as well. Jeremy, can you stop the recording?